Okay, so we're doing a Friday morning Q&A. Fega, you're up.
Okay, so I had a conversation with a Haredi man recently, and he was telling me how like I asked him why Atchalta de Geula, the concept of Israel being like the start of redemption, the phrase specifically being Atchalta de Geula, like why it was so controversial because um there is a concept about like birth pangs before Mashiach and how it's like a process. And I just didn't understand why it was so controversial. Like he gave an answer, but I didn't find it really clear.
Okay. Okay, so I mean I can't comment on what other people think. I'm not really familiar with the Haredi position. I'm really only familiar with the Rambam's position in terms of Mashiach. And I'm also not familiar with, I don't know where that concept that term comes from. In fact, what I want to look hold on a second. I'm just going to share the screen. Do you happen to know how to spell that? Aleph, Taf, Atchalta, Geula? I don't know if that's like how to do it. Okay. Yeah, Atchalta de Geula. Okay, Vilna Gaon uses it. Okay, oh, interesting. Okay, so it is used in the Gemara. Okay, I'm not even familiar with where it's used. Let's just look at this Gemara. I'm going to see what it says. Again, I'm not familiar with this, so I'm not going to answer based on this Gemara, but it says, Umay, hold on, what's the context? Context is, oh, this is the Gemara that goes through the order of the brachos and the Shemona Esrei. Hold on a second, that's not the phrase. Where is it? Yeah. Okay, so the phrase in the Gemara, and this might have nothing to do with what you're asking about. Umar Ra'ulomar Geula b'shvi'is. So why did the Anshe Knesset Hagdola see fit to make Geula the seventh bracha? Amar Rava mitoch she'asidin ligal b'shvi'is, because in the future the Jews will be redeemed in the seventh. And then this Steinsaltz says seventh year of the sabbatical cycle. I'm not sure what the source is for that. Let's just see. Okay, we'll look at Rashi in a second. Yeah, Rashi says Umal Ra'ulomar Gula b'shvi'is v'lo refua achar slicha. So the premise of the question is the Gemara goes through and is trying to say why there's different why the brachos in the middle go in the order that they're in, and it quoted this pasuk that says Hasolech lecho avonaichi, harofe lecho tachaluaichi, hagol mishachas chayaichi. So that goes slicha, refua, and then geula. So Rashi saying the question here is why does it go with geula in the seventh one, v'lo refua achar slicha? K'dichsiv, kra hasolech lecho avonaichi, harofe lecho tachaluaichi. So if you're following the order of the pasuk, it should go slicha, then refua, and then geula. But instead it goes geula in the seventh. So the Gemara answers mitoch asitin legal b'shvis. So it says shvis. Rashi says shvis shavua shben David ba bo chaluk mishar shanim kedamrinan perachelek shana rishona ra'ev v'lo ra'ev v'chulei ad uvashvis milchamos uvemotzai shvis ben David ba. So I think it is. This is where the Steinsaltz is getting it from. That Mashiach will come in the seventh year of the sabbatical cycle. So then it says. Therefore, they establish it in the seventh. Okay, then it asks a question. Amar mar b'shishis kolos b'shvi'is milchama. Doesn't it say that in the sixth year of the sabbatical cycle, then the sounds will be heard? I guess the sounds associated with Mashiach. And then the seventh, then there will be wars. B'motzai shvi'is ben David ba. And then after the seventh year, then the David will come. So then it says milchama nami aschalta de geulahi. The answer is that even war, which is in the seventh, is the beginning of the geula. And Rashi says aschalta de geula ve'afagav dehai geula lav geula. Even though that geula is not the geula, de galusi, because it's still in exile. Elashi galenu minatzaros habaos aleinu tamid. Nevertheless, he will redeem us from the tzaros that come upon us constantly. Taha birkas kibbutz ubinyan Yerushalayim v'tzemach. Oh, okay, hold on a second. Sorry. even though this geula in the Shemona Esrei is not referring to the geula from Galus, because that's referring to Ella Shigalim Minat Saros Habaos Aleinu Tamid. It's referring to geula from normal Saros. Birkas Kibbutz Ubinyan Yerushalayim v'Tzemach David Yesh L'chol Achas v'Achas Birkas La'atzma Levad Mi Geula Zo. Because we actually have brachos for the geula of Mashiach time, which is Kibbutz Galios and Binyan Yerushalayim and the Malchus of David. Each one has its own bracha. Afilohachi came to shem geula Allah kavuha b'shvis. Nevertheless, since it has the term geula, then they establish it in the seventh. Okay. The point though is Chazal do seem to be using it the way that you're using it, which is that the wars that will happen before David comes is considered the beginning of the geula. Okay. Now I'm not answering your question with that. I just wanted to see if Chazal used this in the term that people use it in the same way people use it in. So, question is, what's controversial? I don't know what's controversial, but I'll tell you what is an argument for it not being controversial and an argument for it being controversial, okay? And they're related, is according to my understanding, okay, if you look through where the Rambam talks about Mashiach, which is in the last two chapters of the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam talks about like what is going to be, how it's all going to go down, okay? And he says, how Mashiach is going to go down. So he says like this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to read some samplings. So this is in Hilchos Melakim ומלחמות, chapter 11, halacha daled. He says, V'im yamod melech mi beis David, if a king arises from the house of David, hoge b'Torah, who is knowledgeable in Torah, v'oslik b'mitzvos k'David aviv, and is involved in mitzvos like David his father, his ancestor. Kfi Torah shebiksav v'shabal peh, according to Torah shebiksav and Torah shebal peh. V'Yakov kol Yisrael leilech ba ulechazek bidka, and he compels all of Israel to follow the Torah and to strengthen its foundation. V'yilachem milchamos Hashem, and he wages the wars of Hashem. Harizeh bechezka shu hamelech Mashiach. So then he is a candidate for Mashiach. Okay, he has a chazaka that he is Mashiach. Im asav itzliach, if he does this and he succeeds, v'natseach kol ha'umos shesavivo, and he defeats all the enemies around him. Ubana mikdash b'makomo, and he builds the base of Mikdash in its place. V'kibitz nidche Yisrael, and he gathers in the exiles of Israel. Harizeh Mashiach b'vadai. Then that's definitely Mashiach. Okay, so you see in the Rambam, there's two stages. Oh, sorry, one more halacha. V'im lo hitzliach ad kol, if he does not succeed up to this point, o neharag, or he is killed. Okay, biyadua she'ena zeh shehivticha alav Torah. Then you know for sure that he is not the one that the Torah promised about. V'hari hu kichol malchei beis David hashlemim haksherim shemesu. Then he's like all the other righteous kings of the house of David who were perfected and kosher and who died. And God only positioned him in order to test the many. Shneimar, as it says, umin hamaskilim yikashelu litzrof bahem ulavar ulalabin ad es kates ki od lamoed. In Daniel, it says that of those who are intelligent, among those who are intelligent, will stumble in order to refine in the crucible and to sort out and to purify until the end time that is still to come. Okay. So Rambam basically has a setup which is like this, which is that if there's a king of the house of David who arises and is knowledgeable in Torah, fulfills keeps Torah, compels Israel to follow it, and wages the wars of Hashem, so now he's a candidate. At that point, you have a split off. Either he succeeds, defeats all the enemies around us, and builds the base of Mikdash and gathers in the exiles, and then definitely we know he's Mashiach. Or he doesn't succeed, or he's killed, and then he was he's a kosher king, but that was a test from God. Okay, so if you read those halachos and you read through the rest of the Rambam, it's very clear that Mashiach is a human initiated process, and Yemos Mashiach is a human initiated process that it's a checklist. I mean, I have I don't know if any of my Shalhavah students remember my Mashiach checklist that we go through. What do you need in order to become a Navi? Here are the qualities. What do you need in order to establish the Sanhedrin and to become to have a king? You need these qualities, and then if you do these things with Mashiach, then you're Mashiach. So according to the Rambam, if someone said, "Oh, look, this person is here and he is fulfilling these qualities, and he's in the Chezkas Mashiach," and the process is underway to build the base of Mikdash, and someone were to describe that as the Aschalta de Geula, the beginning of Geula, they would be within the realms of halacha. Like that is what the Rambam is describing here, So I don't see anything controversial about that. And and he gives an example. He says like he gives an example of Jesus, who was a false Mashiach, but then he mentions, I think, Rabbi Akiva, and says that, I'm just going to read this here. I see your hand, Nasty. Don't think that the Mashiach needs to perform miracles, or make new things in the world, or resurrect the dead, and these other things that the fools say. That's not the case. Rabbi Akiva was a great chacham of the sages of the Mishnah. He was a weapons bearer, I think that's figurative, of Bar Kochba, who was the king, V'hu haya omer alav shu ha-melech HaMashiach. And Rabbi Akiva said that Ben Kozva was Melech HaMashiach. V'dima hu v'chol chachmei doro shu hu ha-melech HaMashiach. And he and all of the chachamim of his generation imagined that he was the Mashiach ad shenerag ba'avonos, until he was killed in his sins. Kim shenerag, but then once he was killed, noda she'eno. It was known that he was not the king, the Melech HaMashiach. Lo shalu mimenu chachamim lo os v'lo mofes, and the chachamim never asked him to do a miracle. So the point, though, is that I'm sure in Rabbi Akiva's time, he thought that there was a Mashiach, and he would have said, yeah, this is the beginning of the Geula, So that's what is not controversial. I'll pause here for Esti's question.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if you said this and I missed it. There's nothing about Eretz Yisrael or anything that's happening specifically with the Jews. It's only the person of Mashiach.
Well, he does say that he wages the wars of Hashem, which I don't know what specific wars he's referring to, but the fact that he says if he succeeds and defeats all of our enemies around us, I assume that that's talking about in Israel, and the Malchus in Israel. And he does talk about building the base of Mikdash, B'Makoma, which is definitely in Israel, and then gathering the scattered Israel, is gathering them to Eretz Yisrael. So
it's like somebody else were building the base of Mikdash, and it was like, let's say, for example, like the Temple Institute today or something,
right,
where they're doing certain things towards the base of Mikdash. That's
right.
It's not independent of the person of Mashiach.
I don't think that. I mean, in other words, like he clearly does not mean that that he single-handedly builds it, but it means that like he, I guess, is responsible for for building it, or has a hand in building it, or like enables them to build it. So like I'll address this question. I know you're not asking this question, but like I think some people like are squeamish about the Temple Institute building the Kalim of the Mikdash. I don't see any reason why they should be any more squeamish about that than someone who builds their sukkah in the days before Sukkot. Like, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah on Sukkot, you need a sukkah and you need to build it. And in order to have the Mikdash function, you need to build the Kalim. So the only thing is he's saying that like the this will be a sign that this is definitely Mashiach if the king accomplishes that. So like starting the process and even doing the majority of the process, I don't think there's anything like wrong with that.
Right. It could be other people. It doesn't have to. He doesn't have to be the one who's
right. Yeah, I think so.
And then, like in terms of Eretz Yisrael being established as a Jewish state or anything like that, that's not particularly one way or the other.
I don't think so, because, well, let's put it this way: the ultimate, the ultimate state will be a state according to halacha, and presumably this process of compelling all of Israel to follow halacha is going to involve making the state into a halacha observant state. Like in other words, there's not going to be an eventuality where you have someone who's definitely Mashiach and you have non-religious Jews in Israel. But
right, so like
the route to get there could be very circuitous,
Right. So one way, this could be the same kind of thing. Could be this, you can't have a Jewish state without first having Jews being able to be in charge of the state. So
exactly,
it's not there, but maybe it's along the way, or maybe
exactly not. Right. Yeah. So the to put this in my own words, I think there's a view that people have of Mashiach as being like this: we are completely passive participants, and like God will bring Mashiach, and like the Beis Mikdash will come down from heaven in a fiery thing, and like God will send Mashiach, and there are views like that. Like I think there are legitimate views like that. That's not the Rambam's view. The Rambam's view is it's entirely a human-led process in the sense that like you have to make it happen, and this is how you know that it's actually happening. And so, there's nothing controversial about in the Rambam's view about saying that this process is underway, and it could be underway now. Okay. However, I think the controversy comes from people making definitive statements about when Mashiach is going to come, and that the Rambam also talks about in chapter 12, where he says, I'm just trying to think where to start reading here. I actually want to start reading a little bit earlier than I need to. He says, Amru Chachamim ein bein olam hazeh limos Mashiach ela shibun malchus bevad. This is in chapter 12, halacha 2. That the Chachamim say that there is no difference between this time and the Yom Mashiach except for the change of monarchy. Yirai mi pshutan shel divrei hanavim. It seems from the pshat of the words of the Nevi'im, shebetchilas Yom Mashiach tihye milchamas Gog uMagog, that first will be the war of Gog and Magog. V'shekodem milchamas Gog uMagog yamod navi l'Yisrael, and that before the war of Gog and Magog, then a prophet will arise for Israel. Liyasher Yisrael l'lhachin libam, to straighten out Israel, like guide them on the upright way and to prepare their hearts. Shneimar says, "Hine anochi shaleach lachem es Eliah Hanavi." It says, "Behold, I will send to you Eliah Hanavi. Ve'eno ba lo latame hatahor v'lo latahir hatame." He will not come to render impure the pure, or vice versa. V'lo lifsol anashim shein b'chezkas kashrus. V'lo lahachshir mi shehu chzuku psulim. And he's not going to change the chazaka, the kashrus status of anyone. I don't know what he's referring to there. Ella lasum shalom b'olam. He'll come to establish peace in the world. Shneimar, as it says, "V'hishiv liv avos al banim." He will return the hearts of the fathers to the sons. V'yesh min hachachamim she'omrim. Some of the chachamim say shekodem bias hamashiach yavo Eliyahu, that before Mashiach comes, then Eliyahu will come. Now, side note here. I once made this argument to Rabbi Friedman, and he didn't buy it, and I forgot what his argument was. But I want to say that this pasuk, "Behold, I will send you Eliah Hanavi," is not Eliyahu, because Rambam has it in two separate halachos. He says some say that a Navi will arise to guide Israel, as the pasuk states, "Behold, I will send you Eliah Hanavi." Okay, then later on, next paragraph, some Chachamim say that before Mashiach comes, then Eliyahu will come. So it sounds like two separate possibilities. One is that some Navi will come, and he's being alluded to by saying, I will send Eliyahu Navi. Some say, no, Davka Eliyahu will come. And then the Rambam says, "V'chol elo hadvarim v'kiyot behen lo yeda adam heach yihu ajihu." All of these things and things like them, meaning all of the statements in Chazal about Mashiach, no one knows how they will be until they will be. Shadvarim sesumim hein etel ha-neviim. These were things that were concealed even to the Nevi'im. Gam ha-chachamim ein lahem kabbalah b'dvarim elu, and even the chachamim have no tradition on these things. Ella lefi hechreya psukim. These are all based on the implications of the psukim. So in other words, don't read these gemaras and think that that this is a tradition. So for example, you'll find like the Gemara we just said that the Mashiach will come in the 7th year of the sabbatical cycle. So if someone says, "Oh, you see from here that the Mashiach has to come in the 7th year of the sabbatical cycle," no, that's just a theory. Or there's a Gemara that says that Mashiach's name will be Menachem, not Menachem Mendel, but Menachem. So if someone says, "Oh, you see that it has to be that his name is going to be Menachem," no, that's just a theory. So no one has any traditions on these. And that's why there's machlokas. The Rambam's view is that anything that has a machlokas is not from Sinai. So anytime you find any machlokas, then you know that it's not. There's no tradition on it. Okay. V'al kol panim ein sidur havayas devraim elu v'lo dikdukan ikar badas. In any event, the order of how these things will come to be and the details, none of these things are essential in the religion. Okay, one more paragraph, and then I'll go back to Figa's question. Olam lo yisasik adam b'divrei hahagados v'lo yarich b'midrashos ha'amurim b'inyanim elu v'kiyot behen. person should not be involved in the agadic statements, the homiletical statements, and not go on at length in the midrashim that were said on these topics and things like them. He should not make them into an essence. They do not bring you to fear of God nor to love of God. You should also not try to calculate the end times. I always translate this as the minds of the calculators of the end times should explode. Let's see how they translate it here. Tafuach da'atan is their may the spirits of those who attempt to determine the time of Mashiach's coming expire. Okay, fine. This is not a literal translation. Ella, rather, hold on. Ella yichake v'yamin b'chlal hadavar. Rather, you should yearn for and believe in the general matter. Okay, I mean, not make anything in particular. So, to answer Figa's question about what could be controversial, is I do think if anyone makes definitive pronouncements about Mashiach and saying, well, this is the beginning of the Gula, or it's only a matter of time, or like this is this sign and this is that sign, no one knows anything about this, So the most you can do is theorize and speculate, but anyone who makes a definitive statement, then they are out of their league, So I don't know if that's what this Haredi guy holds, but that's what I would say is controversial. Any questions or comments?
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm hesitant to start the question with should, but I'm going to.
Sure.
What should our mindset be towards Mashiach then on a day-to-day level?
Yeah.
Should it be every second we're trying to create a world in which Mashiach can come, or it should just kind of be an overall thing?
Yeah. So thankfully the Rambam answers that question
Nice.
In these same chapters. Okay, so first thing he says is this is a statement I don't really know what he means, okay? But I want to read it because it is relevant to your question. So this is in the beginning of chapter 11. He says, HaMelech HaMashiach asid lamod. The King Mashiach will one day arise in the future. L'hachzir malchus beis David liyoshna, and he'll return the monarchy of the house of David to its proper place. Hamimshalah Harishona, the original rulership. Ubonim hamikdash, he'll build the mikdash. Umekabetz nidchei Yisrael, and gather in the scattered Israel. V'chozrin kol mishpatim biyamav kishayim mikodem. All of the laws will return as they once were. Makrivin korbanos, we will bring korbanos, which seems to go, this seems to be different than what people always quote. I think from Rav Kook that I've never seen this inside, but that some people say that Rav Kook holds that there will not be korbanos in the time of Mashiach, but the Ram says all the laws will be back, and he singles out korbanos. The osin shmitin v'yovlos will do shmita and yovel kechol mitzvahs and hamurim b'Torah, like all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Now here's where he addresses Nava's question partially. V'chol mi she'enu ma'amin bo, anyone who does not believe in him. Or anyone who does not yearn for the coming of Mashiach. Okay. Lo bishar neviim bilvad hu kofer. Not only does this person deny the other prophets, ela batorah uva Moshe Rabbeinu. He denies Torah and Moshe Rabbeinu. Shari ha'ida Torah of Torah ha'ida of the Torah testifies. Shnemar, as it says, V'shav Hashem Elokecha es shvuscha v'richamecha v'shav v'kibetzcha v'kol ha'amim im yedidachacha b'gzei Shemaim misham yikabetzecha Hashem Elokecha misham yikachacha v'viacha v'gomer. It says Hashem will return your remnant or your captivity, and will have mercy on you, and will return and gather you in from all the peoples. If you're scattered are at the ends of the heavens, from there God will gather you, and from there He will take you, and He'll bring you, etc., etc. The elu hadvarim hamufurashim b'Torah him kololim kol hadvarim shneimar al yidei hanavim, and those statements in the Torah encompass everything that all Nevi'im said. So that's number one. So the weird thing is, I get if someone doesn't believe in Mashiach, but he says if anyone who does not yearn for the coming of the Mashiach, right? That's really, if I don't yearn for the Mashiach, then I'm denying Torah. So that's a strong statement. So he gives us one more clue at the very end of the Mishnah Torah, which we will read now. He says, Lo nis avu. So this is answering more directly, what should our attitude be? So, Lo nis avu ha'chachamim ha'neviim yemos ha'mashiach, lo kidei sheyishlatu al kol ha'olam. The sages and the prophets did not yearn for Mashiach so that they should rule over the world. V'lo k'dei sheyiradu b'goyim, and not so that they should rule over the goyim. V'lo k'dei shenasu osam ha'amim, and not so that people should exalt them. V'lo k'dei lechov lishlos v'lismoch, and not so that they should eat and drink and be joyous. Ella, rather, why do they yearn for Mashiach? K'dei sheyihu penuyim laTorah v'chachmasa, so that they should be free for Torah and its wisdom. V'lo yihi lahem nogis umavatel, and that they should not have any impediment and anyone who impedes and abolishes them, so that they should merit life in the world to come. As we explained in Hilchos Tshuva. At that time, lo yihi yesham lo ra'iv lo milchama lo kina v'tachros. There will not be any hunger, nor war, nor jealousy, nor competition. Shehatova mushpas harbe. The good will be abundant. And all delicacies will be available like dust. And the entire involvement of the entire world will just be to know God. And therefore they will be great chachamim. And they will know things that are hidden and deep. And they will grasp knowledge of their creator according to the capacity of man. Shneimar, as it says, that the entire world will be filled with knowledge of Hashem like the waters that cover the seabed. So the answer to Nava's question, and I think this answers the question about yearning for Mashiach, is why should you want Mashiach? Because it's going to be the time where you can be involved in Torah and Chachma and knowledge of God without any impediments. And what that means is that your desire for Mashiach should not be any different from your desire for learning, meaning that you should want Mashiach so that you can be unimpeded in your Torah and mitzvos. And I think that's why if you don't yearn for Mashiach, then in a sense, you're a denier of Torah, because doesn't mean that you intellectually deny Torah. What it means is that you are not, it's the same as the Rambam uses that phrase by the people who put amulets in the mezuzah and say that they're, deniers of Torah. Oh, hold on, I might be missing this up. Hold on, there's the mezuzah statement, and then there's the using words of Torah for refuah statement. Hold on just a second. Yeah, sorry. He says, halochish al hamakiv v'korei pasuk min Torah, someone who says an incantation over a wound. This is in Avodah Zarah 11:12, and he reads a pasuk of the Torah over a wound. V'china korei al hatinok shelo yibat. If he reads a pasuk over an infant so that the infant doesn't fuss. Hamaniach sefer Torah or tefillin al katan b'shvil sheyishan, or he puts a sefer Torah or tefillin on a kid so that he doesn't so that he sleeps. Lo dai lahen shein bichlal chaverim u'menachshim. Not only are these people included in the category of incantators and omen readers, elashem bichlal hakofrim b'Torah. They're included in the people who deny Torah. So what does he mean? Shehin osin divrei Torah refuas aguf ve'inan ela refuas nefashos. They take words of Torah. They make words of Torah into a remedy for the body, when they're really only remedy for the soul. Shneimar, it says v'yu chaim lenafshecha, as it says, these should be a life for your soul. Aval habari shekara psukim o mizmor mitehillim k'dei shetagin alav zechus kriyasan v'yinasa mitzaros unezakim harizeh muter. But if a healthy person reads psukim or a parak of Tehillim so that the zechus will protect him and save him from sorrows and harms, that's muter. So the Rambam says in both these cases, he says if you read psukim in order to heal something, you're a kofar b'Torah, and if you don't hope for Mashiach, then you're a kofar b'Torah. It's clear he does not mean that you're a kofar in the sense of I deny the doctrine of Torah min hashamayim. What he means is that you're relating to Torah in a completely incorrect way, and I think that's what he means is if you're not yearning for a time when you can be involved in Torah and mitzvos without any impediments, you've got a messed up relationship with Torah. So to answer your question, Nava, and then I'll answer calling everyone else, is that wanting Mashiach to come is not like those stories you hear about the guy who would make 2 cups of coffee every morning, one for himself and like one for Mashiach, or like keeping a bag packed under his bed so that he can like go as soon as Mashiach comes. I think those are childish, like extremely childish views of Mashiach. It means you should want to be involved in Torah and want the whole world to be involved in Torah and knowledge of God without any impediments. Okay, I saw Essie's hand first. I don't know if Essie put it down because she's busy.
No, I just didn't want to leave it up forever.
Okay, sure, yeah.
That it should be like your desire to be involved in learning, but to the extent that people, that's like an ideal type of desire to be learning, right? Because everybody's got shmas and lo shmas, and like if you find that you just like don't want to learn, that doesn't mean that you don't want Mashiach. It means that you've got conflicts in this world, but you could still also want learning to be.
I think this goes in degrees. Like there's wanting and then there's wanting to want. And I think like if a person recognizes that learning is a good, even though they're not personally attached to it, and like if only I were in the right circumstances where I could be involved in Torah and mitzvos lishma, and then they recognize that those circumstances are Mashiach, I think that definitely will qualify.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking.
Okay, good. Yeah. Similarly, I think if a person feels totally content, like life is good and like I'm happy being a Jew in America, like being involved in all my stuff, and like I don't see my life and relationship to Torah as lacking, that also is a denial of Torah, because you're not recognizing there's an incomplete thing here. There's something incomplete fundamentally. Yeah, Fega?
So the Rambam, was he saying that everyone will learn Torah? Like, I'm just wondering if that's including non-Jews, and like I also heard that like when Mashiach comes, conversion will be not really a thing anymore. So I'm just wondering how the two work together.
So like the Rambam said, we don't really know the details, but it does say that okay, this is the famous Perakim Yeshayahu, which I'm just going to read. I'm going to read this translation on Torah. And there shall come forth a shoot out of the stock of Jesse. Okay, that means like someone from the Davidic line. And a twig shall grow forth out of his roots. And the spirit of Hashem shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Hashem. And his delight shall be the fear of Hashem, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, or decide after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the land. And he shall smite the land with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. And the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear feed, and their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the basilisk's den. They shall not hurt or destroy on all of my holy mountain, for the earth shall be filled with knowledge of Hashem as the water covers the sea. So, there are Mefarshim who take this literally, okay, and say that like, the carnivorous animals are going to change to herbivores. Rambam does not say that, and he begins this parak by saying, do not al yale al lave should be most Mashiach yibata davar min hagel sha'olam. Do not think that in the time of Mashiach, then any natural phenomenon will change. Or that there will be some new law of nature. The world will follow its natural course. What about all the animals living together? Mashal v'chida. That is a mashal and a riddle. Inyan hadavar. What does it mean? Shiu Yisrael yoshvim levetach im rishe ha'olam hamashulim b'zev v'namer. That the Jews, Israel, will live securely with those who are wicked. I assume they won't be wicked anymore, okay, because of what the pasuk says. The people who are wicked, who are compared to a wolf and a leopard. Shneimar, and he quotes a pasuk for that. V'yachzru kulam ladasa emes. All of them will return to the true religion. V'lo yigzelu v'lo yashchisu. They will not steal, nor will they destroy. Ela yochlu davar hamutar benachas ki Yisrael. They will eat that which is permissible in peace, like Israel. Shneimar says, "Aryeh kabakar yochal teven." That's what it means when it says that the lion will eat grass like the cattle. So he's saying that the whole earth will be filled with knowledge of God. They will all return to the true religion, but it seems like there will still be a distinction between the Jews and the non-Jews, because he says they will eat that which is permissible in peace, like Israel, and you have other nevuahs like that also. Like, I think, you have, hold on a second. I always forget where this is in Tzfania or Zechariah. Tzfania 3:9. The only pasuk ever anyone ever quotes was Tzfania. Ki az el ha'amim safa brura likro kulam b'shem Hashem la'avdo Shechem echad. Then, this is talking about Moshiach, I will transform the speech of all the peoples to a clear speech, to call out all of them in the name of Hashem and to serve him as one. Okay, but that does not necessarily mean converting to Judaism. It could be like the Radak says on the parak of Tehillim that we say in Hallel 117. This is the shortest parak in Tanakh. Hallelu es Hashem kol goyim, shabachuhu kol ha'umim, ki gavar alinu chasdav emes Hashem lelam hallelujah. Praise Hashem all nations, praise him all regimes. For Hashem, for his kindness has overpowered us, and the truth of Hashem is forever. And the Radak says, Zem mizmor mishnayim psukim lovad. This chapter is only 2 psukim. V'hu liyamos ha-Mashiach. This is about Mashiach. Okay, why 2 psukim? V'ramas bo ba'asoso oso shnayim psukim. It's alluded to in the fact that these are 2 psukim. Ki kol ha'amim yihu l'shnei avarim. All the people, the nations will be on 2 sides. Levad Yisrael, shiu b'torasam, v'chol umus le'ever acher. Israel on one side with their Torah, and the other nations on the other side, the 7 mitzvos, with the 7 mitzvos. The kulam yahallelujah, all of them will praise God. Ki kulam yodu bo az, all of them will acknowledge God together. Kamosh Nemar, and he quotes the pasuk in Tzfania. So in other words, we'll all serve and recognize God, but not necessarily converting to Judaism. And everyone will have knowledge of God. Did that answer your question?
I'm wondering what knowledge of God means in this context. Like, is that learning Torah? Is that understanding science and stuff?
Yeah, so I think all of the above. We will learn Torah, but hopefully we'll get past Torah, because Torah is davar katan, and davar gadol is masa bereshis and masa merkava. Is physics and metaphysics. And that's what I think the Rambam is alluding to when he says they will know davarim hasasumim ha'amukin, the hidden and deep things. V'yasigu das boram kfi koach ha'adam, and they will grasp the knowledge of their creator to the extent that man can. That is an allusion to the deepest areas of metaphysics. And so I think that's going to be what the majority of people will know. I mean, we'll know Torah, but Torah is just a means to an end. The end is knowledge of God through physics and metaphysics.
Mm-hmm. I'm also just a bit confused as to how the non-Jews will learn it if we can't. I don't know all the details, but I know that we can't really teach Torah to non-Jews, so I don't fully understand
so
how that will work also.
I mean, that's a question of what it is we are allowed to teach the non-Jews and what we're not. So that's a sugya also in Hillel's Mlachim and Melchamos about what non-Jews are allowed to learn and what they're not allowed to learn. And the shitos range tremendously, but definitely we can teach them science and metaphysics. And according to many, we could even teach them a lot of aspects of Torah, but definitely science and metaphysics. I am not aware of anyone who says that you can't teach them science and metaphysics.
Okay, thank you. I do have another follow-up question, but I don't know if other people.
Yeah. So before we have a next question, I did this last night, but I just want to try to spread the word here. For those who don't know, ChatGPT, and I think Essie, you should know this, especially for I know sometimes you ask translation questions for I don't know if it's for Rabbi Man stuff, but ChatGPT, I don't know about ChatGPT regular. ChatGPT 4 is now extremely good at translating many Judaic texts. So watch this. Translate the following. I'm just going to copy and paste the Rambam. Okay. And you just heard me translate all this. Okay. But I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just listen to. It says, do not think that in the days of the Messiah, anything from the world's routine will be annulled, or that there will be any innovation in the work of creation. Rather, the world will continue as usual. The statement in Isaiah, and he quotes the whole thing, so it just translates it perfectly. And it does stuff also because it's AI. I was doing experiments where, I was, translating from the Abravanel, and it automatically identified what is a quote from a pasuk and put quotation marks around it. It automatically identified like nicknames that the Bravanel used of like, it says, the Bravanel says Harav Hamoreh, and ChatGPT identified that as Rambam, and it's just like, I mean, this is a near perfect translation. And obviously there are going to be Mefarshim and Jewish texts that are difficult to translate. Like I think if you put Rashi in there, it's not going to be as good as Rambam, because Rambam writes in full sentences, but like, it's just, I think this is a valuable tool that everyone should know about, and start popularizing the usage. So that's my book advertisement for the for this session. Okay. So before we go to Fega's second question, anyone have another question? Okay, Fega, I guess you're up.
Okay. It is a continuation based off of what the Rambam was saying, also just for clarification. So I was wondering, right? The Rambam, like it's pretty intense to say that if somebody doesn't believe in Mashiach, it doesn't believe in Mashiach, then they're kofar like on the Torah and they don't like and in Moshe. So why isn't that mentioned in the Torah if it's so important?
Mashiach is mentioned in the Torah. Yeah.
Where?
So the Rambam goes. So the pasuk he started. You know what's funny, by the way? You know how you can tell that the Rambam is a good writer? Literally every question that you have asked, the Rambam addresses. And I feel like by the time we're done with this, we'll have read the entirety of chapters 11 and 12 in the Rambam, which is like, I once had the experience of, I was, there's arguments of Torah Misinai, and there's different written versions of it. And I had been teaching it for a little while, and I was like, I want to write my own version, even though I usually used to like just give out Rabbi Chait's version, So like I started writing my own version, and then I'm like, before I make this point, I should really make this other point. So I made this other point, and I was like, you know what? But in order to appreciate that premise, I have to do this. And I eventually realized, oh, I'm writing exactly all the same things that Rabbi Chait was writing in the exact order, So that's like, it's just like Rambam really knew what to include here. So the Rambam, where is it? So the first pasuk that I read from the Rambam, in that paragraph where he says everyone who doesn't believe in it, is Hashem will return your captivity from all the ends of the earth. And that's a nevuah, and that is something that has not been fulfilled yet, so we know that it has to come true. It's in Torah's Moshe, but then he goes on and he says, Af b'parshas Bilam Namar. It also says in Parshas Bilam, Masham nibe b'shnei haMashiachin. In Bilam, he prophesies about the two Mashiachs, the Mashiach Harishon, Shu David, Shehoshia es Yisrael miyad tzar b'nei Esav. Okay, so David saved Israel from their enemies, and then the last Mashiach, who will rise from the descendants of David, will save Israel from his from the children of Esav. Sham hu Omer. There it says, Er'enu v'lo ata Zed David. I will. Okay, I got to get. I never do so well with Bilam prophecy Hebrew because it's a little bit poetic. So I'm just going to cheat and use our scroll here. Okay, I shall see him, but not now. Zed David. Asherinu v'lo karov. I shall look at him, but it is not near. Zeh hamelech haMashiach. Darach kokav miyakov. He a star has issued forth from Jacob. Zed David. V'kam shevet mi Yisrael. And a scepter bearer has risen from Israel. Zeh hamelech haMashiach. Umachatz paasei Moav. He shall pierce the nobles of Moab. Zed David. V'chein hu omer v'yach es Moav v'yim madedem b'chevel. Hold on a second here. Oh, so that's not from. It says he struck Moab and measured them out with Chevel. Okay, v'karkar kol b'nei Shais, and he shall undermine the children of Seth. Zeh hamelech haMashiach. Shnemar bo umashlu mayim ad yam. V'haya Edom Yeresha, and Edom will be a conquest. LeDavid. Shnemar, as it says, vayihi kol Edom avadim LeDavid. V'haya Yeresha seir oivav. Okay, so Rambam learns those prophecies to be. I'm sure he's quoting Chazal about David and the Mashiach, and then one more. Af ba'arei miklat hu omer. And even by the Arei Miklat, which we did in Pirkei Avos last wev it says v'im yarchiv Hashem elokacha es gvulcha v'kulei v'yasafta lecha od shalosh arim al shalosh ha'ele. When God expands your boundaries, you shall add 3 cities onto these cities. Ume'olam lo haya davar zeh, but this never happened. V'lo tziva hakadosh baruch hu l'tohu, and God does not command in vain. So in other words, there's a prophecy that God will expand the boundaries to include 3 more cities of refuge. But then he says, and this is the real part, but in the Nevi'im, you don't need any specific proof. The Nevi'im are filled with talk about Mashiach. So like, accepting the words of the Nevi'im are one of the 13 Ikarim, and virtually all of them, if not all of them, prophesied about Mashiach. So Mashiach is all over the place.
Is Tchias HaMesim also?
Tchias HaMesim is not all over the place. And Tchias HaMesim is alluded to in Sefer Daniel, but the Rambam really holds that the Iker Tchias HaMesim, he does hold that there's a pasuk in Daniel that talks about Tchias HaMesim, which I think is Daniel 9 something. Hold on just a second here. I think I gave shiur on Tefilah Podcast last year. Like everything you wanted to know about Tefilah Podcast, or everything I know about Tefilah Podcast. It's in 9 or 11. Hold on a second. Admas Afar Yakitsu. Yeah, so the Rambam holds that the pasuk in Daniel, it's 12:2. V'rabim miyashene admas afar yakitsu, ela l'chaya olam ve'ela l'charafos v'lidiron olam, l'diraon olam. Many who are asleep in the dust of the earth will wake up, these to eternal life and these to eternal degradation and I forgot what diraon means. So Rambam says that that's about Tefilah Podcast, but he says that the Iker way we know about Tefilah Podcast is Torah Bal Peh. Yeah, and side point, since we're talking about it, I mean, this is one of the questions on the Rambam, which is how does Tefilah Podcast fit into a scheme of Mashiach, given the fact that he says that he said in the Rambam that we read in 12. Use the ChatGPT version. Do not think that in the days of the Messiah, anything from the world's routine will be annulled, or that there will be any innovation in the work of creation. Rather, the world will continue as usual. So in other words, there won't be any miracles, so how does Tefilah Podcast fit in? So I have not heard really good answers. I've heard that the Rambam is saying that in the Yemos Mashiach, there will not be a resurrection. There won't be any miracles, but the Tefilah Podcast will happen before Yemos Mashiach. But the Rambam, to my knowledge, does not have any clear chronology about when Tefilah Podcast is going to happen. I don't know if I got all your questions.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. This works out very well. My high school students asked for a unit on Moshiach, which is going to be planned for after their break next week. And so this is a good review for me. Yeah, tomorrow.
I have a new question, so I don't know if I should. Yeah. Okay, this is just like a recommendation question, I guess. Do you have anything that you think is good to learn, or like a shiur that's good to listen to, or something for like 10 minutes at a time?
Interesting question. Are you asking specifically for like a shiur that is longer than 10 minutes, but can be broken down to 10-minute parts, or like for learning?
Yeah, just sometimes I have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I have really enjoyed Rabbi Fader's in Gematria Refigured. He's got these like little tidbits, right? So let's say like I'm just looking at the lengths. Okay, there's not exactly 10 minutes, but like he's got like 20 minutes, 17 minutes, 19 minutes, sometimes even smaller, so like those are really good. Self-promotion plug, my audio versions of my Substack articles often clock in at 7 or 8 minutes, so that's I think really good. So those in terms of shiurim, I bet this is not a recommendation, but like there's got to be like whether it's like YU or H or something like that, like 10 minutes Torah. There's got to be someone who like has a thing like that. But in terms of from our circles, I don't really know anyone who produces short form audio Torah other than Rabbi Fader and me. So I don't know. In terms of things that could be listened to in 10-minute chunks that are otherwise, I'm not sure. Things to learn in 10 minutes. I mean, Mishlei just lends itself so well to like picking a pasuk and then like, thinking about it for 10 minutes. Like you get really, really far in 10 minutes. In terms of things to read, I'm sure there's also good stuff that's like broken down into small chunks. But yeah, I think those are the only things that come to mind for now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you go ahead. No, you can go. It's a half-baked question, but sure. Bringing up ChatGPT kind of like sparked it.
Yeah.
So technology is like obviously constantly evolving, and I'm wondering how it is we can make sure that we can use it in a way that's efficient and helpful as a tool, while avoiding the opposite extremes of kind of becoming lazy and letting it take over our lives in a way that like we're no longer using our minds. Because it's so much more prevalent now, and like especially with like the Apple goggles that have recently came out. What is the way that we should approach that? Right. So there's a micro way to answer that question and a macro way. Micro way meaning like specific things that you can do, like for example, not relying on the translation, but like doing it yourself, or like not relying on its citing sources, but like translating it on its own, and like not taking its word as absolute. Like I had this thing the other day. I'll just show you. A student of mine asked me about what the view. So the way he asked is he said, he wants to know about the story of Joab and if it mentions a flaming bird that reincarnates itself. So like ChatGPT didn't give me anything, and then like I asked if there's a midrash and didn't give me anything, and I said, and then I thought maybe he meant Job, so it still didn't give me anything. And then I found out that there was a pasuk in Job that Rashi interprets one word as a phoenix-like bird, and then like it said, oh yeah, there's a thing like that, and then like it acknowledges. So if I had stopped early, then I wouldn't have found that out, So I think the micro answer is going to evolve as the technology evolves, and you're going to have to like constantly be updating it. But on the macro answer, every tool could be abused, like people can abuse English translations, by like relying on them, or by not training their mind, or people can abuse having a Rebbe who answers questions, and I think the question always has to be like, what are my goals, and is this in line with my goals? So like, let's say, for example, if your goal is to like, let's say you're doing Gemara, and let's say your goal is just to get as much Bekius as possible, just to get as much factual information as possible. So then there might not be anything wrong with using an art scroll, But if your goal is to learn reading and translating skills, or like the cognitive skills of like breaking this down and understanding the logics, so then you're robbing yourself if you use an art scroll, So same thing with ChatGPT. Like if you're, Johnny, my brother did a thing for on his channel about writers using ChatGPT, and like he said the same thing of like, if your goal is to become a better writer, then this could end up being a crutch, or you could use it effectively for tools. Like I use it for proofreading in specific ways, but if you're using it to write your papers for you, then like, you're cheating yourself. So, I think it might be possible to formulate rules and guidelines. I'd have to think about that more. But in terms of like the two broad answers, like I think we are going to have to work on like, what aspects of my brain am I outsourcing to AI that are bad? Also, what parts are just going to be like, that ship has sailed, like the okay, hold on just 1 second here. Where I'm just going to ask this just to find it.
where exactly does Plato talk about the detriments of writing? I think it's in Theaetetus. No, Phaedrus. Okay, Phaedrus. Oh, Theoth. I knew there was a thing there. Yeah. So Socrates has this thing where, like, Socrates famously didn't write anything down. Okay. And now the irony obviously is that Plato is wrote down all Socrates' stuff. But let me just see if I could get this thing. Phaedrus writing. I just want to see if I could get a translation. Yeah. So okay, I'm just going to rely on this translation. Here, O king, is a branch of learning that will pop-ups. Close. Okay. So annoying. Okay. Here, O king, is a branch of learning that will make the people of Egypt wiser and improve their memories. My discovery provides a recipe for memory and wisdom. Okay, so he's talking about writing. But the king answered and said, O man full of arts, the God-man Thoth, to the one it is given to create the things of art, and to another to judge what the measure of harm and profit they have for those who employ them. And so it is that you, by reason of your tender regard for the writing that is your offspring, have declared the very opposite of its true effect. If men learn this, meaning if people learn how to write, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. What you have discovered is a recipe not for memory, but for reminder. And it is no true wisdom that you offer your disciples, but only the semblance of wisdom. For by telling them of many things without teaching them, you will make them seem to know much, while for the most part they know nothing. And as men filled not with wisdom, but with the conceit of wisdom, they will be a burden to their fellows. Okay, so that's basically saying writing is bad. Okay, now, I don't know how the world would have looked like if there weren't writing. But like, you have to admit that he has a point here, which is that if things are written in books, you don't have to remember them and you don't have to know them. You can just look it up. And we in Judaism went through this whole thing of Torah Sheba'al Peh used to not be written down. And like, we see it fundamentally shifted the way we relate to Torah Sheba'al Peh, but that ship has sailed, So like, what aspects of AI are going to be on par? Like, I mean, there's the revolution of writing, then the printing press was another level, then the information age. We're now in the age of AI, and like, what things are now just going to be part of the way we operate, and like, what should we fight and what should we not fight? These are questions that I look forward to exploring, and who knows? Yeah, good question. So I think that's as much as I can answer right now. Okay, Fega, this will probably be the last question for today.
Okay. I'm not sure if it'll make so much sense, but I'll try.
Sure.
So I think that there's value in listening to podcasts, but I also think that there's value in kind of just letting your mind breathe and not necessarily be taking stuff in. So how do you balance the two? And when do you know when you should? I want to listen to podcasts, but I'm not sure when and what,
Okay. So it's a great question. I'm going to tell you my own journey with this. Okay. So up until COVID, I had a commute, and I would, drive to Shalhevet. And it would usually be like 15 minutes in the morning and then anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes going home, depending on when it was. And I would listen to tons of podcasts. And then COVID hit that first year, very few podcasts. And then I had to like refine my balance with podcasts. And there was a period where I crammed in listening to podcasts and shiurim whenever I could. And then I said exactly what you said, which is no. I need time to let my mind wander and to breathe. So what I did is I did it categorically, which was when I walk to and from yeshiva, I will not listen to anything. And that's going to be my time for doing that. And then when I'm cooking, then that's when I'll listen to podcasts. And that, like, when I am driving to groceries, to do grocery shopping, I'll listen to shiurim, So I made categories for myself. And, I determined them in a way which was the proper balance. But by making it categorical, I was able to like just follow the rules, and not be tempted and not feel like, oh, I have to cram stuff in at every moment. So I think that's a good technique that you could apply to your own self. I think another one also is like knowing your mood. Like, I sometimes catch myself forcing myself to listen to a shiur when I really don't have the headspace for it. And then I dial it down to like listening to a informative podcast. And then sometimes I don't have time for that, or I don't have headspace for that. So I put it to an entertainment podcast, So like really just being honest with yourself as well. And then, always pushing yourself at times of like, okay, let's say I've gotten into this routine. Can I, I've been telling myself this story of like, I can't listen to shiurim while I cook. But maybe a year's gone by and let me give it another try. And then, suddenly I find that I could do that, and so like, I think constant, like being honest with yourself, but experimenting to find like, can I push myself more than I thought is a good way to like, measure that also. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think those are the guidelines that I would say for now.
Thank you. That is very helpful.
Okay, good. Yeah, let me know how it goes. Okay, good. These were good questions. I'm actually, like I said, I'm really happy we did so much about Moshiach because that's what I'll be teaching soon. So that works out. And thank you for coming. I know it was, I was not sure if anyone, how many people were going to come. So I'm glad that we got a nice crew. Okay, have a good Shabbos. Next week, I actually forgot to announce this in the chat. I cannot give any of my normal women share next week. So no Thursday night or Friday morning because I'll be in Florida visiting my dad, God willing, and I want to spend time with him. So that's that. Okay, have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.